So, howdy, folks. Welcome back to FinOps for Finance. Today, I'm joined by Jag Sodhi. Jag is, like myself, a former accountant and now working in the wonderful world of FinOps. So, I thought he'd be a good person to get on to speak to you all about how one kind of migrates from one career to the other. Thanks for coming on, Jag. I'll lead by, if you wouldn't mind telling us what your origin story is. How did you find your way across to FinOps?
Sure. Thank you for having me, firstly. So my name is Jag Sodhi. I studied accountancy and law at university. I decided law wasn't for me and decided to go down the accountancy route. I also got some paid training through my workplace, which was a great achievement. I became chartered accountant some odd years ago, distant past, got the certificates and everything. Started to manage the 500 petrol filling stations at Morrison's. And then I was presented with the chance to become the system accountant, head office, managing PeopleSoft. And during that phase, Morrison's underwent an acquisition, Safeways acquisition. I don't know if anybody can recall, but we took over Safeways and we then started a major finance transformation program called Evolve. It's probably the biggest in the world at that time. We were moving the whole business to Oracle e-business and RMS. If anybody's familiar with the Oracle acronyms there. And at that point, I transitioned into finance business analyst, capturing requirements, mapping out processes, doing the to-be, doing the as-is, identifying gaps, coming up with solution design, testing, API support. And then I left to continue that journey with other companies for many years. I found myself circling back around, coming back into Morrison's as a product manager for Nutmeg, the clothing brand of Morrison's. And whilst doing that, I actually had an opportunity to take the business from on-premise to cloud. So that was my kind of initial input or my initial journey into cloud. So that involved some technical understanding, going through contracts, working with suppliers, and make sure we didn't get caught short in any of the technical areas. So I managed to successfully migrate that across onto the cloud, and then some of the senior managers actually presented the challenge to me and said, "Look, do you want to manage AWS environments and do a small project where you could manage the optimization?" And what that meant was really right-sizing RDSs and EC2 instances for 3 months.
Very good. So, usage optimization.
Yeah, sorry, my screen just went blank there, sorry. I just thought my computer's locked me out. Just bear with me. Yeah, so I did some optimization and it proved successful. We created a cloud team, or formed a cloud team around AWS. And obviously, I was introduced to FinOps, the concept of FinOps. Not knowing what I was doing, I realized I was actually doing some FinOps optimization. And I then successfully managed to become a practitioner, and then obviously took the professional certification, and I'm currently the ambassador for FinOps within the northern region.
So, it's kind of an interesting journey. It's like one builds on the other almost unintentionally, from accounting to finance business partner for kind of IT side of things, to what's this cloud about, to looking at the cloud, and you're kind of, and I suppose one of the common question people say is, how do I get started? And I think that's a really good route to take it. If within your existing company, someone somewhere is using the cloud, it's just, are they using it to the optimal level, and is there an opportunity to kind of break in that way, because you're already on the payroll.
Exactly.
It's not like you have to go and like apply and do an interview for the company where they don't know you. Whereas if they know you've delivered in the past and this is tangential,
I
it
think
could potentially make a
I
lot of
think the key
sense.
thing to all that is somebody said to me once, your toolkit should be universal. So no matter where you go, you should be able to take the practical toolkit anywhere and apply it to any job. And I think that's what I've always tried to do. Just make sure the practical toolkit, the common sense toolkit, is always there. Even though I was new to AWS concepts, there was loads of acronyms, jargons. I didn't know who to turn to in terms of the kind of initial phase of that optimization piece. We still managed to do a fair chunk, and it was only by listening and understanding the engineers and how the structure works. But that was down to the toolkit. So I'd probably say the essential thing is to have the right toolkit, to have the right mindset to say, I can do this and I will do this.
Yes, yeah, because no one knows at all. I think what's the FinOps Foundation say? There's no runners in FinOps in terms of the crawl, walk, run, because it's changing all the time. Anyways, what is it? Mike Tyson said like everyone has a plan and then they get punched in the face. It's like you might just get an idea of what's going on in terms of FinOps, and then AI comes along, and you've got massive GPUs that are killing your budget, or Broadcom acquire VMware, so on-prem versus the public cloud becomes more of a debate, and repatriation. So it's changing all the time, and I think that's a really important point, that having something universal, you'll be able to adapt and evolve no matter what comes down the line. Because the one thing we do know is that things are going to change. Very good. And then in terms of this toolkit, Jag, what in your opinion are the key skills for that non-technical person to develop, that they could maybe put in that toolkit and bring across?
There's a degree of soft tools, and there's also some hard skills as well. So we talk about soft skills and hard skills. I think they complement each other, but in terms of the soft skills, I'd probably say people skill, interpersonal skills like communication, collaboration, empathy, listening. So colleagues actually understand what's expected of them, why you have these challenges, and you're not there to throw them under the bus, so to speak, but you're there to help them on their journey as well, to make the cloud more efficient. I tend to talk efficiency when I'm talking with engineers, simply because when you talk finance, they're just like, you're another finance person. So tactically, you have to, and you position in the way of efficiency. Efficiency drives ultimately some savings. So I use the words efficiency because engineers tend to resonate with that a bit more than finance. If they can understand that, if they can be more efficient in the cloud, that releases some cash back into the business. And we're all trying to stay in jobs in the current climate. And that's all I ever say to them. Look, I'm only trying to do is keep the business afloat, keep us all in jobs, and improve the customer proposition that we have to improve turnover and profitability for the company. But the not so bolts is really is to keep us in jobs. The hard skills I'd probably say is the more practical side in terms of examinations. So practitioner, FinOps practitioner, FinOps certified, whether that's engineer or professional, AWS GCP certifications. But the thing, like I said earlier, the two things are complementary to one another. You can't do one without the other, because people will ask you, they'll be able to read between the lines. Does this person have the hard skills? Does this person have the soft skill? And if you can present that, you build a better rapport for yourself, and you build a better rapport with that person, because they say, this person knows what they're talking about. So I do fully, I'm engaged with this person, and I'm willing to help them, and they're willing to help me on my journey as well. But the other thing is, listening is also key, because engineers actually have the solution to their problems, or to the issues within the cloud world. So it's key to listen and to act upon some of their recommendations, because they understand what's going on in their environment. Sometimes we just need to take a pause and say, I'll give you the chance to talk, and I might be able to gain an opportunity out of that in order how to make the cloud more efficient. So that's what I tend to do.
Yeah, because the person closest to the problem has the solution. It's kind of like
Correct.
people spend loads of money on these big, expensive consultancy firms to talk to everybody, to put everything they've said in a PowerPoint deck and charge a ton of money for it. When the answer is just there, you just need to ask the right question of the right person, and like say, listen.
What I also find is some engineers actually do like to be presented with a challenge. So they want to be on the even though they might not have implemented that change or that the instance or even the resources into the cloud environment, they know a better way to do it. And what you're doing as a FinOps is giving them the opportunity to share their experience and to showcase what they're capable of doing. So it's also, so we do a lot of POCs where I give the engineers the time to kind of develop and say, look, if you want to challenge something, let's do a POC and challenge it. And if it works successfully in your domain, then we can roll that out, write a playbook, and we can roll that out to the other engineers. And that's what we're working on. And we are seeing some massive decreases in our cloud spend, which is great. We're not compromising on service. We're actually adding services onto our cloud infrastructure, but we're seeing costs come down, which is unusual because that means we're being more efficient. So, and that's not just me doing that piece of work; it's everybody's collaboration. So everybody's involved.
And it ties in massively with what you're saying about like what it boils down to is you're trying to improve the company's bottom line to keep everyone in a job. If you can deliver, and budgets are tight, so if you can drive efficiency to be able to do that new thing with the same budget, and like say you're also giving engineers a platform within which to effectively show off. So when it comes to a performance review, they can say, well, I developed these 3 POCs that have been shifted out across the company and they've saved us X. And then the collaboration with the FinOps person, can give them the number so that when they're on that performance review, they can say the dollar impact that that's having, and it's good for them. And then it's the flywheel effect. Everyone else sees that this person is improving and just builds that culture.
Yeah, and it just you'll notice that the engineers now have a step in the toes. They're itching to come to work because somebody's listening, somebody's seeing what they're doing, and it's not a case of me taking the credit of all the cost savings. I actually put the engineers' names down who have done the work, so their name gets to management as well, senior management, director level. So it's a case of saying, look, you've done the work, you deserve the credit. So I'll showcase who's done that piece of work. At the end of the day, it's a collaboration again. But if somebody deserves a credit, they'll get mentioned.
No, that's great. And yeah, it's all about building that culture, and it kind of builds on top of each other, and kind of, and then your job is just a case of effectively kind of trying to keep score almost. Very good. And then, so if someone has these tools in base, they've got their couple of certifications to build a base understanding, they've got the soft people skills to go with it. When they move across in terms of the technology and understanding how the cloud actually works, what are some of the ways other than the certifications? Is there any other recommendations that you'd have about kind of that
Sure.
people can learn?
I mean, certification is one avenue. It holds a lot because there's a discipline involved in taking exams. You got to dedicate your time outside of work to do an exam. That in itself is a no deal, and that takes kind of commitment on the person of the individual, and that shows to management. This guy is fit for our company. But the other side is also something I regularly advocate is not to boil the ocean because cloud technologies, there's loads of them. There's loads of services available by the cloud service providers. We're inundated with new services all the time. So you can't possibly understand all the different services on offer, but just watching introductory videos, going on to AWS or GCP, watching the foundations, going to the summits. There's a lot of free content on YouTube. Even watching this podcast, somebody might gain some insight into a service. Highly unlikely because I'm not going to be service specific, but it's you're always learning something. So hopefully, further down when we're talking about in terms of the FinOps Foundation, people might learn something that they can take away. But so one thing I would do is look at the AWS pricing calculator because that's a really good tool for you to understand how your bill is made up of because it talks about the usage times by the rate, which equals the cost, which is ultimately the bill. So that's a really good avenue and it's free. So every cloud service provider offers pricing calculator for an individual to use. And there's loads of examples within pricing calculator, which explains how the bill is made up of, or how the costs are made up. So that's really useful from my perspective. It paints a really good picture of how the service works. So that'll be a first
That's
time.
actually that's a really, really powerful point, Jack. And I never thought of it that way because like the cloud is such an abstract concept. It's like a server sitting somewhere. But if you can say, okay, we're using these, and then you break it down to its lowest level.
Correct.
So how much is an M5 instance in Ireland costing you per hour? And you say, oh, okay, it's costing me like what 0.005 cent an hour, whatever it is. Why is my bill for it thousands? Because you're running loads and they're billed by hour. And I think that's a really, really important point because it's so big. But by looking at one really, really small little piece of it, it can help grapple with it like
Yeah,
that.
and it helps you understand what the drivers are for that particular cost. But I'd also speak to engineers as well, because they do tend to have some knowledge in this space. Not all, but some do. Some are very close to cost, and it's just how advanced or how kind of close to the action engineers are. And don't mean that in any disrespect to any engineer. It can be based on time, could be just they're involved in some cost or to do some budgeting. They'll then get wrapped up into how the costs are kind of the cost are, how they're manifested. You could also speak to like the service providers themselves. They'll offer some free training. For example, AWS, they offer some free training. So does GCP at the moment. And also, if you use a third party to manage your cloud, then they might have some training material that you could use. Also, the one to really go to is the FinOps Foundation. Obviously, the foundation have a lot of material. When they first started a couple of years ago, I'd say there wasn't that much, but now the content is just free flowing. It's just so much, and it's really rich in current and hot topics. So I'd probably say I'd refer you to the FinOps Foundation. But
Like,
don't boil the ocean. Don't try to do too much. Think about the best way to do is when you come into your company, understand what are my top 5 services that are driving the highest costs, and concentrate on those. Go for the low hanging fruit. Understand those top services. If you can understand them, then you can do some um, kind of harvesting or some efficiency on those. Then you work your way down the list of services that you have. That's the way I tackled my work here. So I tend to do a major and a minor. So I'll pick the highest cost, but I'll also pick the lowest cost, and then understand both services in detail. Like example, QuickSight, that's a low-hanging fruit in terms of Morrison's, but we've got RDS, which is a major cost contributor. So I'll work on a major and a minor. Next month I'll do another major and a minor, etc.,
yeah,
etc. So every month you're always getting
and
familiar with the service
yeah,
as well.
and there's a variety as well because when you are looking across that variance and spend, it won't be the same type of thing. Um, no, that and when you mentioned the FinOps Foundation, they've got the intro to. There's an introduction to FinOps which is free, and there's also an intro to the Focus certification. So they don't cost anyone anything. You can try it and be like, okay, I'm kind of maybe I'll explore this a little bit more, or this isn't really for me. But it shows a starting point.
It does. Can I just plug in something there? Just you've hit the nail on the head. It's free for those that are financially have some hardship at the moment. The FinOps Foundation does offer a scholarship for those that need financial support, and you could use that scholarship for your practitioner or your professional certification, or you could use it for both even. So use that opportunity. The money's there. It's still available for this year. And if you need it, then by all means apply for the scholarship.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll put a link to that in the notes. That's a really good point. Very good. So we've got lots of resources to get people going. So they're all mad to join FinOps, but you start and you've got your head in your hands. You're like, what have I done? Because you're coming across a load of common challenges because it's so different compared to like a traditional financer and those kind of roles. What would you say are some of the common challenges that people might face and maybe some potential solutions?
I think we've kind of touched upon some of these, but I'll just reiterate that technology, the fact that cloud service, people don't tend to understand technology components or cloud services themselves. So the best thing to do is actually do an introductory course on one of the cloud service providers like AWS or GCP. There's loads of content and a lot of it is free, like I've mentioned before. The other challenge could be the confusion around the bill. How's my bill made up of? On demand, you'll hear terms like on demand, reserved instances. Again, there's plenty of material there, especially on the FinOps Foundation. When you do the practitioner training course, that'll cover some of these terminologies off as well. Or you can speak to your TAM. So most cloud service providers have a technical account manager, TAM. So you could utilize them. If you're not sure of anything, that's what they're there for. They're there to make sure you have the knowledge to do the job and to use their service. So I'd say utilize that if you're really stuck. But again, there's loads of content online, especially on the FinOps Foundation, also the cloud service providers. We do tend to use a lot of acronyms as well within
Yeah.
the FinOps world. I'm saying some acronyms. We use a hell of a lot of acronyms. Let's be honest. Yeah, and sometimes it can be a mindful to navigate through. Just persevere. A lot of those acronyms can be found again on the FinOps Foundation. Just type it in the search, you'll come across it. If you're not sure, just do a Google search again and use the words FinOps and then do the acronym and it'll come up. Just create a jargon dictionary or jargon buster for your function as well. That's what we've done internally. We've got a Confluence page just for all the jargons that we have within Morrison's and all the ones that are specific to Morrison's. Some might be external as well, but we've got some that are really specific to Morrison's. So we do have a jargon buster page. The other thing is, the other challenges are understanding the cost and usage data, which we've kind of talked about, but understanding how to do the analysis. You could use a pricing calculator, which again explains how the bill is derived. That's a really useful tool. I can't emphasize that enough. That for me has been a godsend in my early years, and I still refer to it now and again. So, example, if I'm working on a new service that I've not come across, such as our customer service desk, which is contact center. That's a service that works on telephony. So you've got like telephony charges. You've got DIDs, which is direct inward dial. I didn't know what a DID was, but I used the pricing calculator to explain, give me a live example. The customer calls the customer contact center. The customer contact center handles the call, and then they may have to triage that to a manager to get some resolution. How would that work in terms of your bill? And there's a perfectly laid out example. And that for me was a godsend because I didn't have a clue as to how the contact center worked. So that allowed me to do some kind of business analysis and some kind of cost analysis as well in that space, just to understand what was going on. So it's really useful. Don't underestimate the pricing calculator.
And you're kind of almost building your layer of knowledge, like you're kind of banking it, and the next time you come across it or something spikes, you're like, okay, I've got a foundational understanding of that, and you can kind of
perfect. Yeah, make some notes, create a Confluence page, create a playbook or some sort of documentation which saves you having to go through all those examples. Again, something that you can quickly refer back to. That's another thing that we've done. We make sure that the Confluence pages are constantly updated, and we do have playbooks for some of the FinOps tasks. The other challenge is you would need to produce some reports. So your senior stakeholders will be interested in, what's my bill? What's my cost for this month on the cloud? What's my total cost of ownership? So you will have to get familiar with maybe SQL or either Looker or Excel. I'm sure coming from finance, you'll be familiar with Excel, so that's a really easy and go-to kind of comfort zone.
Yeah.
You could use that
Yeah.
kind of application to build some reports, but I tend to do everything on Looker, so it updates the interactive dashboard. But again, there's loads of training material, and there is a company called O'Reilly who have a lot of online training courses, so you could use them. Just thinking what are the challenges. Okay, so we could have a challenges in terms of just looking back. I did have a challenge on the FinOps observability tool that we use, Morrison's. It's actually provided by a third party. It's not. We don't use the native solutions. Unfortunately, we've gone a step further and we've actually bought the tool in. And sometimes it can be a bit of a minefield to work through and understand how that works. And that does take a lot of learning as well, because you'll be building out anomalies as well, some rules, some policies, some guardrails. So that'll actually do some automation. So every day we come in, we'll have cost anomaly alerts to say, this cost has gone up from the previous day, and we work through those anomalies. But to actually work through those anomalies, you need to actually create the rules in the first place, and setting those rules requires an understanding. So it's not just a case of getting a tool, a cloud cost tool into your business. You actually have to learn how the tool works. So it's good to sometimes to speak to your TAM, technical account manager, to get them to support you on training. And sometimes it's also useful to raise a few tickets now and again, service tickets, to say, how's this report created? I don't understand how this number works. What am I looking at here? And then a lot of the times people do come back to you, technical people, and they explain how the numbers are derived. And we did that initially, and we found out that one of the numbers didn't actually reconcile with our cost explorer, and the cost explorer was right, but the observability tool was slightly out, so we got that fixed. So it's good to challenge the status quo. When am I seeing what I should be seeing? Should I look at the source? Right, what's AWS is showing? What's my tool showing? Right, there's a difference. Right, I better log a ticket. And that also kind of highlights to the TAM that you really are focused on what you're looking at, and you're looking at very detailed numbers, and you're willing to go to the granular level. So
They're
it's
supposed to build something like an anomaly detection, like you're effectively setting up guardrails of what are the normal parameters and what falls outside of that. So
exactly
you don't want to set something where, okay, these are the parameters, anything outside of it, and it's like every weekend it's going to go above because usage is higher, or you don't want false positives because that dilutes the value of the exercise, but you also don't want to miss anything. So it's a tricky line to walk, I suppose.
it is, and I think these tools are adapting, because the tools are now asking, what's a false positive? Were these false positives? And you can actually mark them as false positives, so it learns for the next time, so you don't get the alert again and again. So the tools are getting smarter, to be honest, and they are actually an aid rather than a hindrance. And don't see them as they're here to take my job. They certainly won't take your job away. It's just again, use them as a tool for what they're meant for. The other thing is, the other challenge could be around, and this is probably a big challenge, because I think every business or every person that I've ever spoken to implementing FinOps or undertaking FinOps in their current business has this challenge, which is tagging. Yeah, how do I make sure the
Yeah,
cost
yeah,
is allocated to the right
yeah.
budget holder, or to the right area, to the right domain, to the right kind of product? So that's a challenge. I think you'll be able to solve a majority of it, but there'll always be some costs that will creep in that will need a bit of tinkering with. Yeah. The best thing to do is actually sit with engineers and understand how the resources are deployed. That's the way I took this approach. So I sat with my engineers and said, what do we use to manage the pipeline? Right, we use Jenkins or Terraform, for example. How do we then commission the resources, and what guardrails can I put on that in those tools to shift left to prevent me from having the heartache of allocating the costs manually on the right hand side? So as much work you can do to shift left helps you in the longer run. But it also helps the engineers, because they increase the standard of data. and the accuracy of that data that's flowing into downstream. So it's really useful that you probably take that challenge on head on, and sooner rather than later, because that's actually very useful, and that data is used for a majority of your analysis. So it's key that you key with my understanding and my viewpoint. That's a very useful thing to or useful challenge to take on early doors.
And just for context for people who are they're like, what is this tagging and shift left? So shift left is talking to the engineers as opposed to looking at the cost after it's been incurred. So you're kind of trying to stop it at the base, and tagging is like having an identifiable way of identifying a resource, or because the CUR or the cost and usage report, the billing doc is thousands of lines long, millions of lines.
It's just a
Wide.
way so tags are used to slice and dice your data effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And know what neck to choke as well, like who has
exactly,
left something
exactly.
on,
Who's
or
done this?
who's
Who's turned it
provisioned
on?
something illegal.
Who's responsible for it? Which project's paying for it? Ultimately, that's what the tags are there for, and the useful kind of metrics to add to the data. Another challenge is engineers, like I mentioned at the very start, engineers don't like finance at all, any finance jargons. So what I'd probably say is any presentations you're doing, just take their finance jargon out and keep it very simple for layman's. That's what I tend to do. I don't do any finance jargon unless people understand what the finance jargon is. I might allow one or two jargons in there, but generally I just keep it very simple, so engineers could understand. And we talk about from the efficiency perspective rather than cost.
Using their language as opposed to
exactly.
So
So
you're meeting them where they are, and
yeah,
I like that.
that is it. They're the kind of challenge that I'd probably would have faced when I first started this role 2.5 years ago. But I'm still, some of these challenges I'm still facing into. It's just a matter of just you become familiar with it, and you know what the process is, and you know how to where to go. And I think that's what FinOps is really about. Once you become familiar with FinOps, you'll then have a go-to place. For example, a new service comes on, right? I know I can go to the pricing calculator. I know I can go to the cloud service provider's website. I know there'll be some training material in for example, in YouTube. That you'll build that knowledge up over time. But the key thing is, don't boil the ocean. Don't stress yourself out. Just take each day as it comes and start somewhere. Don't try to take everything all in one snapshot.
Yes, yeah. Like say you could be kind of worrying about the perfect place to begin, and then not do anything, analysis paralysis, just JFDI, just something, do it.
Yeah. Don't procrastinate. Just do something.
Yeah. Very good. No, that's great, Jag. So we've kind of covered a lot, and then I suppose my last question in was around advice for someone making the leap into the field. I know we mentioned a lot of the resources and networks and stuff like that. Anything additional that they should maybe look out for?
I think you should, if you're coming from finance, you got to leverage your own skill set, which is being good at budgeting, being good at reporting. So they're the good things that you're already familiar with. So you kind of understand how those are made up of. So you should be fairly comfortable in those. So that also is a tick box in your toolkit already that you've brought across into your FinOps role. And you kind of analysis paralysis head, which is good, but don't get in too bogged down in the detail. Just keep it very simple in terms of your analysis, because these aren't accountants that you're delivering to. These are engineers that are really struggling for time. You need to keep it very simple, focused. What do you want me to do and why? Just those two questions. I'm maybe even went by, right? Okay, just to see if they can get it, slotted into that sprint or their time frame. The other things I'd probably say is start with the foundation, FinOps Foundation. Go into the FinOps Foundation, start reading through the content, become active with the foundation itself. So you can start by going on to a working group. So working groups focus on certain topics. Example, we focused on metrics and KPIs for FinOps. That's what I was involved in when I first started, and it's a good, useful tool for to get familiar with FinOps and to actually just get involved in the discipline. And you see how other FinOps practitioners work and what they're thinking. You get familiar with the acronyms, you get familiar with the jargons as well. That breaks down the kind of learning that you need to do by going into those type of working groups. Get hands-on. So speak to your third-party cloud service providers or your third-party vendors and ask them for training, on-site training, or whether they can enroll you on a course that's going to be held by them. So utilize them. There's also a lot of free material on if you had to learn SQL, for example. I used to use W3 schools, which is free SQL training. So utilize those kind of resources. In terms of on-demand and those different types of billing models, again, you could refer to your TAM. You can go up to third-party vendors like NetApp, for example. You can also speak to other FinOps practitioners in that going through the same kind of thinking and going through the same ways of working. The other thing that the other advice is, I'd probably say, create yourself cloud center of excellence, a cloud cost center of excellence, CCCOE. What we did at Morrison's is we actually created a team of engineers and FinOps and tried to get as many personas involved in our cloud function. And we talk about anything but cloud. Well, we talk about everything and cloud, should I say, not anything but cloud. Yeah. So we talk about everything and cloud, where we give them free reign to do POCs, and they come back and feed into that group and say, well, we've done this POC example on Spot. It's worked really well. We've written a playbook. We can then roll this out across other domains. So we give them the free reign to actually go to the other domains and to roll that same piece of efficiency out. We also showcase the monthly spend. We also then challenge other optimization spaces. We've run campaigns in that as well. So at the moment, we're going to be running at Morrison's. We're going to do a new right sizing campaign for 3 months, where we've got the billboards, we've got posters on every wall, we've got team talks happening where we're actually telling people we're doing a campaign to save money, but also to be efficient on the cloud. And we'll run that twice a year. And it's always well received because we end up giving, like, every Friday we'll do some samosa day where we'll bring some samosas in, some pakoras, and we'll just get the engineers laughing and we'll get them talking and we get them to think about efficiency. And then we also we gamify it by putting certain domains on the scoreboards, who's rank them top 1 to 3. So it's they're the kind of things that we do here. We try to make it fun to be part of the FinOps team and to be fun as part of the cloud team ultimately.
Very good. And yeah, fun, bit of fun. Like, you can't all be, you need to save money. Like, there needs to be something more to it. Like, it's carrot and stick, not just stick.
Yeah, I think we work a lot of hours in the working week at work. It needs to be fun, but people do need to want to come to work as well. So that's what we try to do here, where it's a win-win. We do the right thing, we learn off each other, we're respectful of each other, and we create a really safe, cool kind of atmosphere where people can have the free reign to do something, experiment. There's no bad thing in an experiment or doing the POC. I know we're going to incur cost to do the POC, but there's a lot of learnings on the outside of that to say, was it successful? Did we do it? Is there any efficiencies in that? There wasn't no efficiencies, right? So there's no point doing that again. So there's lots of lessons to be learned as well. Cloud is really interesting. It's one of those where, from an accountant hat on, it's variable spending. It's like, just to get over that hurdle is a hurdle in itself.
Yeah,
To say, hang on, it's not stagnant. It's not,
yeah.
it's not depreciating over the life of the asset. No, that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Why can't I forecast this?
Yeah,
Why can't you tell me what I'm going to spend on this
exactly. Yeah,
next month,
and
next six
forecasting
months?
is a really big challenge for an accountant. Somebody who's from an accounting background. Forecasting is very interesting in the cloud world, and I'm sure people will come across it and they'll understand what I mean by challenge and interesting. So all good.
Like Anthony, the more you do it, the better you get at it, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
that
there's
is
no,
the truth. So we
there is
are
no.
in marketing in our business, in our marketing domain. We have been doing forecasting for 2 years now, and we're very close to the actual numbers. The variances and that, but that's just down to engineers helping me do that budgeting. I don't do budgeting at such a high. I go to the engineers because they know what's going on, and they give me the time every year. And the budgets are now due again for next year, so I'll be going knocking on their doors. So it's kind of, it's a repetitive, but without them and their knowledge of what's coming on into the roadmap, what's going to impact our environments or accounts, I'm not able to do a budget in the proper and give it the comeuppance it needs. So you do need to speak to engineers to really understand what's coming into your account, and what can be decommissioned, if anything.
Yeah, no, Jag, that's really, really helpful. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And if people want to get in touch and stuff like that, what's the best place for them to catch you?
999 is, no, I'm joking. No, so they can get in touch with me on jag.sodhi and morrisonsplc.co.uk. More than welcome to get me on that, or if they want to reach out to me on the Slack channel on the FinOps Foundations. So they can reach out to me on Slack on the FinOps Foundation if they want.
Right.
I am doing a couple of events in the north in Morrison's, so please feel free to come, and it's going to be a really interesting event this year, which is a carousel theme where we're going to go around small groups, but we're going to have hot topics. So we're going to learn about individual cloud service providers. So hopefully we'll have somebody from AWS, GCP, OCI. We'll even cover off Azure if we can. And then we'll have other themes within the FinOps Foundation, how to do dashboarding, how to do some optimization, looking at rates, looking at the pricing calculator. Well, I'll stop there because I'm giving away too much there, but we'll have so
Yeah.
much content. It'll be a mini AWS, or a summit, or even a FinOps Foundation X, but just for the north. We will have a few people coming from the south. Everybody's welcome. There's plenty of food. Hopefully, we'll have some the right audience turn up, and we'll have a really fun-packed day.
Great. No, sounds brilliant, Jag. Thanks so much.